Governor, do you think that the Rhode Island Democratic Party's chief strategist, Kate Coyne McCoy, should be removed over her tweet about Senator Lindsey Graham?
Yeah, so it's very concerning. I just heard about that earlier this morning, and I'll be following up on that. And yeah, it's troubling.
Do you think she should step down or no?
I think we'll let the process work out as any process in terms of person staying in a position, not staying in a position. I know that she has put out an apology. We'll see what Senator Graham if he actually responds to her apology or not. But people make mistakes. Like I said, that's a serious mistake to make, and so I'm sure that that's being under consideration right now. The Speaker will be making his comments, and I'll wait to talk to him.
And one other question.
I'm meeting with the Senate President and the Speaker tomorrow on a number of these issues.
And you'll discuss that?
Yes.
And nearly 74% of Rhode Islanders said they support a requirement for the government to get the vaccine. So why not do that? Yeah.
So again, we're doing very well, and as I just outlined, a plan to identify, the people who are unvaccinated, and we're going to make an effort there. And it doesn't surprise me because we got about 78, almost 80% of the people with the first shot. So I'd imagine if you polled out around the state, people are saying, hey, if I got vaccinated to protect my family, if I got vaccinated to protect my community, if I got vaccinated so that we can get back to work and open the economy, if I got vaccinated so we can open our schools, I could very understand why that percentage is there. We're going to take a look at the a real deep dive on the 200,000 and 205,000 that we started to post, quite frankly, as a number that's going to continue to decline over a period of time. And then we're going to, make our decisions based on how successful we are on that, on reducing that 205,000 number. I'm very interested to see what that number is going to be next week. So at the moment, we're going to stay the course in terms of a strategy. We are leading, we are a national leader, as far as vaccinations. There are a few states doing better. I just put a message into my friend up in Vermont about why their 12 and older is a higher percentage than we are. We're going to keep on digging in on that issue, and we're not done with really doubling down on vaccinating people in the state.
All right, right here with Brian.
Governor, are you concerned at all about a full return to school with the rising case numbers and a large proportion of children, obviously those under 12, not being vaccinated at this point?
I'm not concerned about that. I think that we are now starting to work with RIDE and making sure. I think one of the most important things that we're doing currently is preparing for the reopening of our schools and making sure they're safe. As we said, we did follow the CDC guidance until that might change. And I'm visiting schools right now. I think I've visited five public schools and elementary schools in Providence over the last 2 days, taking a strong interest, obviously, in Providence, but also statewide. I think that we have the capacity to do some sort of pressure testing strategies in every district in the state of Rhode Island. I've set that up through consulting strategies that understand how to reopen schools safely. And right now we have the capacity to do pressure testing before school starts in every district in the state of Rhode Island. We'll definitely be doing that in Providence. If we find that somehow that pressure testing on the plan has flaws in it, and we can't correct them, then we'll revisit. But I have confidence that once we open up schools, that they're going to be done safely and in a way that keeps the kids in the classroom.
And will there be an incentive or a disincentive for schools not to fully reopen? Have you heard from any district that does not plan to fully reopen at this point?
I haven't heard from any district that's not fully opening, and the intention is to have all the children and all the students in the classrooms, and that was one of our goals, and we'll meet that goal. But we also, just as we've done on many of the metrics, whether it has to do with testing, which again we're leading the country and as one of the leaders, if not first, certainly a high in the last week. Whether it's vaccinations that we are clearly, have overcome any of the obstacles that were in place when I became governor, and we're in the top 5 or 6 in the country on a regular basis in terms of vaccinations. We need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make sure that our schools are open safely, and I believe that we have the capacity to do that.
And just finally, with the maybe more concern as the case numbers rise, is there a reason no one from the health department has joined you recently. We haven't seen the director, Alexander Scott, for a while now. Are they on board with your strategy at this point, particularly not re-implementing some sort of mask mandate or recommendation for
Yeah,
vaccinated
I
people?
believe that they are. I mean, I'm having a daily conversation. Our staff's having daily conversations with the Department of Health. And we are having, if not daily, we're on a 7-day, 7-day, we're looking at this material every day of the week, including the weekend. So if there's a reason, like I said, to pull an alarm, I'm not going to be afraid to do that. But we need to make sure we get people vaccinated. And then we are considering, as the hospitals right now, they've talked about having vaccinations being mandated in the hospital setting by September 1st. We're looking at, health facilities that are under the state's control, and we may very well take a position like that if we think that we need to on the staffing. So this is a work in progress, but the people in the state of Rhode Island should know that, one, our hospitalization rates have been very stable over the last 4 weeks during the time frame of the Delta variant. And our the death rates, which is another factor that we have to consider. We don't want families to go to loved ones' funerals. And we have, again, and it's kind of tough to talk about, but we are leading the country in terms of the death rate over the last 7 days and over the last month. So I think that we probably share that spot with about 10 other states right now. But we have addressed this issue, and unless that really changes dramatically, we don't have to pull the alarm. And then if there's tweaks or different moves that we make in different areas, we're going to make that very, very much public with the media that's here and the people who live in the state of Rhode Island.
Governor, good afternoon. The city of Providence continues to seemingly spiral out of control with lawlessness. Now, last June, after the riot, I was there the next day, and it was your predecessor. It was Governor Raimondo that actually instituted the curfew in the city. Mayor Elorza was not going to do anything. With all the violence that seemingly is even happening after hours, 2:30 in the morning, girl from Warwick was murdered, 3:30, the people at Popeyes were shot at 3 o'clock. Any thought to implementing some kind of a curfew after 2 a.m. in the city? I recognize you're the governor and not the mayor, but, in the next month you're going to have college students returning, PPAC wants to reopen, you have water fire starting. There's a fear that there's just lawlessness in the capital city.
Yeah, it's real, and we're concerned about it. I'm not sure that it rises to a level where people should stay away from Providence, but it certainly rises to a level where we got some issues that need to be dealt with. And I'm happy that the council president Igliosi spoke out. I think that that's what is necessary right now is leadership in the city to speak out on the issue. I certainly welcome the Senate and the reps doing the same, and that they represent those areas in the city that are impacted, some more than others, and the city council as well. So our office stands in terms of providing whatever resources that the city requests, whether it comes through the city council or whether it comes through the mayor's office. We're not going to institute some form of martial law. We're not at that level right now. And I mean, with either the National Guard, because the National Guard was very involved, John, right, with that weekend that you talked about, and rightfully so, and thankfully so, right? So, it's one of many things that is on the list, but it is definitely a priority to us right now, especially as we were talking about reopening schools, water fire, coming on board. We're going to continue to make the offer, and we'll respond to the community's requests, for the assistance that we can provide, and we're going to continue to do that. If it crosses the line in a way that is necessary, I'm not afraid to make those moves, but at this point in time, it makes a lot more sense to be doing it in collaboration with the city, the police, the mayor's office, the city council, and the reps and senators, and community leaders, right, with the Nonviolence Institute, and others that are really concerned about this issue.
And just a quick follow-up. As a result of the altercation at Water Fire last week, Mayor Elorza seemed to imply that your security detail kind of overreacted. Did you have any do you want to just comment on their behavior? And as a result of that, have you decided or any conversation about altering their work in essentially ensuring your safety?
Yeah, so first of all, if you didn't see the first 15, 20 seconds of the clip, what you saw was state police rightfully walking in and separating them from the governor of Rhode Island, right? I mean, this is the governor of Rhode Island, and we need to respect that in a way that, I said it was inappropriate behavior, and it certainly was more aggressive than it needed to be. He had things to say. Nothing that I hadn't heard, because I've taken phone calls during the negotiations on the contract with the mayor and talked to him about that. So we'll respond accordingly. Right now, we haven't made any measures to, beef up the protection or the, the surveillance on us. But that was, that certainly was an event that was over the top. But right now, I think we're done answering that. I'm kind of like the Belichick line, right? We're on to Cincinnati, right? So we're on to Cincinnati, and we're on to reopening the schools. The contract got ratified. We're happy about that.
You said in the first 15, 20 seconds that you don't see. What did he say? What's missing from there? What did you see in that first 15?
Well, the first 15 seconds or so of 20 seconds was, very much in your face. And I'm just asking the mayor whether you think this is the right time to be having, this discussion. I wouldn't call it a discussion, but, it's a one way. But, and then, so I want to make sure, I'm glad you asked this question, because I have the highest respect for our police and our state police. And to give the impression that any one of our police officers that was in my company overstepped their bounds in a way that could be used to say that the police was, doing something they shouldn't be doing. They were doing their job, and I'm grateful for that. And my family's grateful for that, right? So, but at this point in time, like I said, I'm on to Cincinnati. Like Belichick said, we're talking about opening the schools. We're talking about implementing the contract, but I appreciate the question.
Governor, President Biden called on all states and cities to enact their own eviction moratoriums for the next 2 months. California and New Jersey have done so. Will Rhode Island follow suit?
If I have the authority, I'm not sure for 2 months. We're going to look into that. I mean, that's new news with the president. So, I mean, that I extended the the measure once, and we'll take a look and see whether we have reached a standard that allows me to do it again. But that's why I really used some of the time today to talk about the housing money. I was with, I still don't think that we've done the outreach that we need to do. I was with the executive directors of the Boys and Girls Clubs in Rhode Island yesterday, and there hasn't been an outreach to them, yet they service about 26,000 young people who are probably, the overwhelming majority are coming from families that may need assistance. So I think that what we need to do is, as I said, we're going to be talking to the White House tomorrow. I've sent letters to the Rhode Island Housing. They are working very hard based on what I can see. The criteria, I think, needs to be relaxed. And we may have to get a little bit more liberal in terms of how we interpret the criteria.
And one other thing, ACLU is suing the DOC for not releasing people granted parole. Were you aware of this, and what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know enough on that. Let me take a look at that, and then I can make comment. Yep, thanks.
All right, I'm going to go to Ray, Lynn, Anita, Pat, make my way around.
Rhode Island Housing, you say you'll be sending letters, making phone calls. We're dealing with Rhode Island Housing for the last 8 weeks, and you say they're working hard. We don't see that in the community.
Yeah, so I think, as I said, I think that there's still more outreach to be done. I know that since I've talked to them, they've updated the amount of funds in their marketing, which I think they should be even spending more. But I had conversations with their consultant lobbyist that they brought on board that I know very well, and I had discussions with him when I was touring some of the Providence schools yesterday. And I do believe that they are really putting the effort. I think that we need to expand the contacts that are being made so that we're hitting every potential family that could have a problem here. It's not just people who are homeless. Again, I'll repeat. There's a criteria here that really should, no family right now that is struggling financially should be removed from their apartment and then shortly from their homes with a mortgage program. So, but we do have to reach out to the Boys and Girls Clubs. We need to get into the communities that are impacted to the high degree. But I do believe that there are some restrictions, like I mentioned, about the utility thing. So instead of being able, we have identification who's behind. There's no question about who's having trouble paying their utility bill. And yet, we're going to have to go and contact $20 million worth of overdue utility bills, and to advance those dollars going forward, I think at 3 months at a time, if I recall the requirements. And we got to go one by one to people to give them the relief on past utility bills. So this is a function of not only maybe being a little slow getting out of the gate, right? But I think it's also continuously trying to find out the places that who we should be talking to kind of maximize it. But there's some guidelines here in terms of the federal guidelines, like I said, with the utilities that are getting in the way of distributing the dollars. We got $200 million to distribute. My goal would be to distribute all $200 million somewhere into the state of Rhode Island. Every dollar that comes in, that's our money. That's money we sent to Washington. As I repeated many times, I sent a check on May 17th on my taxes to Washington, and this money's coming back to us, and I want to maximize that. I think at the moment, we're making every effort to do that. I'm very interested in my call tomorrow with a few governors, with Mr. Spellman, I believe his name is, who's got a track record in 2 administrations, now a third, to see what they're going to do to address this issue that we, quite frankly, we had with getting the money out to the small businesses, right, with DUN numbers and all this. They should be like a no-test strategy here. It's pretty clear who needs help and doesn't need help, and we should provide that money to them.
Yeah, but I understand that. The problem that we have is when we asked you the question about 6 weeks ago, the Secretary Director of Rhode Island Housing came out saying, oh, that's my money. And the governor and the federal delegation had nothing to do with it. I don't think that's her money. It's the money, like you say, belongs to everybody in Rhode Island. People are behind on the rent. They want to pay the rent. They need to do an outreach into the community. They went to the Latino stations and bought a month of advertisement. Yeah. But nobody went there to do a follow-up, to tell the people, call this number. This is the way you can apply. You need to make a push.
Yeah, and we are doing that. I mean, I'm doing it right here at the podium, right? And I'm doing that through communication, not only to the Rhode Island Housing, but to the board members. We've sent a letter to the board members expressing our concern. So everybody on the board has received a letter from us saying that this is an urgent matter. This is not going to the back burner. But yet we have to analyze it properly so that we're not making criticisms where they're not, where they're not called for or called for. So I think the utility thing is a big hurdle. $20 million of relief to go out to families that you're talking about, and yet we have to, make one dial at a time into those families to have them sign off on paperwork. That's gonna take months, not just weeks, to make those contacts. So we need to get our federal guidelines structured differently, or like I said before, we need to kind of take a little bit of liberty on the state and understand the need as far exceeds, making sure that every I is dotted and T is crossed.
All right. Governor, clearly the slowdown in the number of deaths, very low number of deaths, and the decline in hospitalizations is due to the high vaccination rates, which is great. You said that you wouldn't be afraid to sound the alarm if there's an emergency. My understanding from the way the CDC has described it and other health officials, federal health officials, that the risk now may not seem like a 5-alarm fire, but it's a slow and steady incremental increase in cases because of the Delta variant, and concerns that a former CDC official raised that other variants will be mutating and coming out, and that this pandemic just may continue on indefinitely if we don't, do something now before it's a 5-alarm fire or whatever. So I'm wondering, given that thinking, what you think is appropriate in Rhode Island, and is there at some point in the numbers or metrics that you would look at to decide that it is time to return to some type of masking recommendation or mandate for public places or any other?
As I said, I'll be talking to Governor Scott up in Vermont very shortly. They've actually done a little better than we have, although we've done really well. And they're not taking any move on the CDC guidance. Of course, they're not into the that category that we just inched up into, and we expect that the infection rate is going to increase. It could double over the next, over the next few weeks or next week. But our hospitalization rates and our death rates, there's not a great deal of data that shows that somehow that we're going to, running to a danger territory. And that's been the metric all along is hospitalization rates as well as death rates. And we're good there at the moment. But like I said, I'm not afraid to pull the trigger if in fact it needs to be pulled. Right now, New Hampshire, and if you take the New England states, New Hampshire has made has not made any guidance relative to the CDC guidance. Vermont, same thing. Massachusetts, with Governor Baker, he's put in a kind of like, hey, if you're in danger, you should be wearing a mask type of a thing, right? So, but he has not said that all, retail, all restaurants and everything else should be requiring masks of people who are vaccinated. I still say, look, all the businesses can determine how they want to move forward, just like the universities did. And thank you for the universities for doing that. That's one of the reasons that our vaccination rate is going to really, increase over the next 30 days. Put up the sign with the smiley faces. And the smiley face says if you're vaccinated, you don't need a mask right now. If you are unvaccinated, you should be wearing a mask because it's a responsibility you should have. And I would say also virtually because of the publicity which has been warranted on the CDC information, there's not anybody in the state of Rhode Island who cares about this issue, right, that's not aware of the guidance. They can take the guidance or not take the guidance relative to what the CDC said. So right now we're in the spot with Vermont, New Hampshire, probably Massachusetts. Connecticut has got a little bit more aggressive on it from what I understand. Maine has, has got a little bit more aggressive as well. But we're not an outlier in the New England states right now. But we are going to take real close attention to what's going on a daily basis, 7 days a week.
Can I just one follow-up? Central Falls has taken, as you know, a position where they've asked people to mask
Yes.
in public buildings and
Yes.
public places. What do you think of that? And did that seem like something that other communities with higher infection rates should consider?
Yeah, there's a lot of degrees to it. We're going to support the local municipalities as I would as a former mayor. They know the territory, and I'm going to support that. Newport I think, came out with something in their town hall to require masks. We're going to support our local municipalities there. But we don't want to be signaling, again, especially with our economy. We repeat again, that we're leading the Northeast in terms of recovery. But the reason that we're doing it is because we're probably, one of the leaders in the Northeast in terms of vaccinations. You can't have one without the other. So I'm not the governor that's sitting there saying, oh, yeah, we're going to open up the economy, in some of the states that did way too prematurely. We're looking at when we opened up the economy in May and where we were in terms of hospitalization rates at that point in time, where we were in terms of infection rates at that time, and where we were in terms of death rates. And so we're doing okay right now. And so I'm not going to signal to the people in the state of Rhode Island that somehow that we should be taking a step back on opening our economy or the question in terms of reopening our schools. We're not there right now. So I support Mayor Rivera, right, as well as I do with Mayor Napolitano down in Newport. Local communities can kind of have their say, just like local businesses can have their say. We got hospitals that are going to enforce a vaccination strategy by September 1st, which is a month away, by the way, right? So the urgency there is, if it was really so urgent, you would have that done tomorrow or yesterday. But it's going to be rolling in because of anticipated strategies that we need to get prepared for in the fall. We're very fortunate to have a Department of Health that we have that are working this every day. Tom McCarthy that has shown that he's a real good leader, along with Tony Silver in my office. This is not a back burner issue to us, and we want the people of the state of Rhode Island to know that.
Governor, I have questions on two different topics. First, where does your offer with offering the state police to Providence stand? Do you think that the tension between you and the mayor is delaying this? Where is that right now?
Yeah, so I want to just repeat, this tension is not a two-way tension. So, just like we talked about earlier on the question in terms of, who facilitated, the you know, the behavior, right? So this is not I have no tension towards Providence. In fact, I know my responsibility not only on the schools, which happy to talk about that issue. There's no tension from where I sit. So it's very clear to me what my responsibility is to the people who live in the state, and it's very clear to me what my responsibilities are to the people who live in the city of Providence. So there's no tension. We've made offers. You know, I've answered that question in terms of where we're going to be going with it, but I'm really pleased that the city council president has taken a stand on this, and I would expect other city council members to do the same thing, and I would also expect reps and senators that are elected to serve the people in Providence, as I'm elected to serve the people in Providence, to speak out. But there's no tension on my side in terms of understanding what should be done, and I'm certainly not taking a position where, geez, there's tension there, so I'm afraid to step in and do what I believe need to be done.
The state police, are they in Providence as we speak? In
Not
some
physically
form?
on the ground, no,
Okay.
that I'm aware of.
Second topic, do you think that Cuomo should resign following the AG report this morning?
Yeah, so I think that, again, that's like in the same wheelhouse as the chair of the Democratic Committee in the state of Rhode Island. I let the process run out. It doesn't sound good.
Governor McKee, this weekend, Mayor Lorza made a very heated speech at an event at Roger Williams Park, and he followed up with a conversation. His particular complaint appears to be the lack of, quote, unquote, community input. And he alluded to things like town hall meetings. Should that process, or was it even possible to include that kind of process in a difficult labor negotiation, particularly one that had gone over such a protracted period? And I just have one other question.
Yes, so I think that's a really important question to ask, especially to the people that have been knocking on my door thinking that this contract is a 50-year-old binding agreement. It's not a 50-year-old binding agreement. This agreement that was signed and ratified is going to expire in the summer of 2023, and then we will start renegotiations on the contract probably in the fall of 2022. So that's one piece. The other piece on it, which you asked, is really important. The mayor, this was not a hostile takeover. The mayor agreed to sign off on an agreement, and so I've researched before and after the ratification that gave the authority to RIDE, and the state in that case, to negotiate a contract, and for the commissioner to sign that contract. Now, leading up to that, I attended many public sessions. This was not done, as the mayor's talking about, in a backroom deal. He signed off his authority, and he became a mayor like I was in Cumberland. I never saw the contract of the school department in Cumberland. I negotiated 12 contracts municipally, and we never negotiated the terms until there was a ratification. I did bring it to the city, my town council, for updates on a as-needed basis. But there was the structure of the agreement that was signed by the mayor and not approved by the city council, from what I've told, was basically gave up the authority to negotiate and to sign the contract. So it's a very important point to understand how negotiations work. I understand it. I think that's one of the reasons why we got so much traction and success over a very short period of time, because I understood how contracts are negotiated. And to say that this was not a public dialogue with the community, it's just not true. There was many meetings which I attended as lieutenant governor, and then incoming as governor, you know, noticed that we needed a little help in getting this contract over the finish line, and we did that.
One other question. Governor, the a consortium, if you will, a coalition of states from around the nation, negotiated about a week and a half ago a $26 billion settlement, proposed settlement, with Johnson & Johnson and a number of distributors of prescription-grade opioids. Whatever reason, Rhode Island was not part of that. Rhode Island still has the option, of course, to participate in that settlement. Have you been in contact with Attorney General Nerona about that? And if we are able to partake in that settlement, given the administration and most recently the General Assembly's aggressive attack, if you will, on the opioid epidemic, will you insist that that money not go into the general fund, but actually be used to support intervention for people trying to recover?
Yeah, so that's another public issue that I helped organize, I think 33 communities in the state of Rhode Island to do a lawsuit against the distributors and manufacturers of the opioids. We're still very much involved in that. The state of Rhode Island, also through the Attorney General at the time, Attorney General Martin, he put a lawsuit on which partnered with other attorney generals in the country. Those dollars are starting to become available, and we're going to maximize those dollars. So I haven't talked to the Attorney General specifically about what you talked with the Johnson & Johnson, but we know that there's on the table right now in another area close to $100 million that's available, that's going to be coming into the state of Rhode Island. We're just kind of working out how much the state would control and how much the municipalities should be allocated for the issue. My preference is to get the money into the municipalities who understand the issue, but we also got to retain some level on the state level if there's a need to kind of partner in as a state. The state has a role in this, the local municipalities have. I'm not familiar with the Johnson & Johnson, the 26 states, but I know that we're making progress. Yeah.
Governor, two quick follow-ups on Providence and one thing on COVID. On the neighborhood response team, what is the reason that the city is given for not wanting help of the neighborhood response team? And two, on the teacher's contract, what is the overall cost of the contract? Do you have that cost for the city?
Yes, so the second one is, which is another issue that has come up a few times in terms of the fiscal note. We're very aware what just like I did when I negotiated contracts in Cumberland, what every half point meant, what every point meant, along with the dollars that were allocated towards the $3,000. That's going to come out of federal dollars, not state dollars, in terms of the way we had the flexibility on that. And I think the overall, I don't have the notes here in front of me, I don't think, but I think overall we're talking about total impact of the contract around $20 million over the course of the contract. I don't know if I have that broken in front of me by year or not. I've asked for that, but.
And releasing those numbers?
Oh, yeah, of course. We were very aware of those during the negotiations. I've negotiated 12 municipal contracts. I understand the process of making sure you know what you're agreeing to, and the people who were representing our office were very clear on terms of what those costs were. Oh, the police, I'm sorry, go ahead. What was, what's the city's response? What's the?
Why don't they want the neighborhood?
That's unclear to me.
They haven't, the mayor or the police chief hasn't told you?
Specifically about taking us up on the neighborhood policing, no. I think we shifted into some sort of data recovery or something like that, which is fine. We'll do what we're asked to do, but not in terms of actually having boots on the ground and participating in a situation that was pointed out that is very volatile. Why isn't this is not happening in other cities and towns in the state of Rhode Island? Not to this degree. So we'll keep the pressure on, and like I said, very pleased that the president of the city council has made it very clear that as a leader of the community is concerned about it. And actually, I was with the city council president today when I toured a couple of the schools with the current chair of the school committee as well.
Governor, today the New York City mayor announced they will be mandating proof of vaccination beginning September 1st. You said you would support local municipalities in their own mandates. Would you support this, and could you see Rhode Island, any city or town in Rhode Island, getting to this position?
Yeah, so I give you two very good examples of where that's worked very well in the state. I think we've gone over the universities in terms of mandating vaccinations for students to come on campus in the classroom or in the dorm room. And then I was happy to say there was music. There actually was music in Newport this past 2 weeks. And that was a tremendous success where I showed up with family, with vaccination cards in advance or there, showing that I was vaccinated. And so that whole crowd that was there, really enjoying the music, by the way, that they voluntarily said, here's my vaccination card or here's my testing. So I think there's a role for this. I think you're starting to see it in the hospitals. You may see more and more either businesses potentially, larger business, smaller businesses get involved. Right now we're going to support, like we did with the music festival in Newport, the folk and jazz. We supported that effort. We're supporting the universities. If other organizations want to do that, we was happy to sit down with them, help them with the logistics, as we did on both of those situations, both on universities and on the Folk and Jazz Festival. We were very interactive in working with the management teams that were implementing that, and that offer is open to anybody in the state that feels as though they have a similar goal in mind in terms of mandating vaccinations or the testing.
All right, Bill, you got the last question.
All right, two quick ones. First of all, Governor, I've heard from a number of administrators and teachers in urban core districts that are concerned about a lack of expansion of distance learning plans. Should you have to pull the trigger on that? Do you think that LEA should be developing distance learning plans just in case we get to that point?
Yeah, and they had those in place last year. So I think that they you know, if there's a need to roll back in that direction, they already have the experience to do that. I'm not getting that right now in my network. I think that people are very anxious to get back to school, both teachers and students. I've answered the question before that we can certainly pressure test any of districts' plan. I happen to be very engaged in Providence right now, and we're going to make sure we pressure test in all that whole plan, whatever plan they have, which is being developed now. So you know, I'm not concerned about having contingencies. I just, the same way, though, let's signal in that we're prepared to move forward with students in the classrooms, and we should just stick to that. And I would also say that as we move forward, CDC changed their guidance 3 weeks after they gave their initial guidance. So we'll keep a close look on what that guidance is.
And as part of the follow-up to the Newport Folk and
Yes.
Jazz Festivals, which it did seem like people were having a great time, the vaccine checkpoint, or negative test checkpoint and all of that. But what about contact tracing after the fact to see if there are any breakthrough cases? Is that something that the Department of Health is kind of looking at?
I'm not aware of that, but we certainly are going to be able to track people who get infected, and so they're going to be, you know, that we have the ability to ask them if they were there. But you're right, I think you enjoyed the music as well. And the artists really were very thankful that we were able to figure out back in March and say there would be music in Newport, and the organizers were able to organize that in a safe way and keep that tradition alive, because I was told if they didn't go this year that they may not show up next year because of the cost, you know, the loss of revenue. So you're balancing all this, Bill, right? And again, I've repeated it a number of times, safety is our #1 priority, and I'm not going to move off of that. In that case, they did it very well, and the people were very happy, and I attended the back in the weekend in terms of their event with their committee that was organizing it, and the people who were, you know, instrumental in making that a success, along with Jay's Sweet, right? And they were very appreciative that we were one of the first in the country, if not the first, to actually have live music in front of a live audience outdoors. We're going to keep on moving us to the spot where we hold on. Right now, we're kind of like around the quarter-mile turn in terms of making sure we're leading the country in terms of the economy. When we get to the half-mile, we want to be there as well. So decisions that we make are going to impact that. So that's why we're looking at the data so closely, and we're going to continue to do that. Okay, thank you.